This just happens in the Strait of Hormuz and it could escalate fast. Something just happens and I don't think most people fully understand how serious this could become. The US just launched a naval blockade targeting Iran's ports, and within hours, a Chinese tanker sailed straight through the Strait of Hormuz as if nothing has changed. Now stop for a moment and think about that. You got the United States trying to control a critical oil route, and China basically signaled, well, moving through it anyway. That's not just shipping news. That's a message, because the Strait of Hormuz is not some ordinary location. It is one of the most important choke points on Earth. A huge shares of global oil supply moves through that narrow passage every day. When pressure builds there, the effects travel far beyond that region. And here's where it gets more tense. The US make it clear this blockade will be enforced, not softly enforced either. Language was used about immediate eliminations for vessels that violated. That is not the kinds of warning people dismiss. But then China stepped in, sends a tanker through anyway, and publicly says it expects no interference. So now you got two major powers testing each other out in one of the most sensitive areas in the world. And here's the part that stands out to me. This was not some random vessel. It was a Chinese-operated tanker, previously sanctioned, carry a large methanol load, moving through the areas after the blockade had already begun. That doesn't look accidental. That looks deliberate. Now, ask yourself this. What happens if the US decides to fully enforce this move? Are they prepared to stop Chinese vessel? And if they do, what does China do next? Because now this is no longer only about Iran. Now you're talking about a direct clash between the US and China. That is a different level entirely. At the same time, Iran is warning that if its shipping is blocked, Gulf ports may not remain safe. So now pressure is building from every direction. The US tries to enforce control, China pushing back, Iran warning consequences. This is how major situations form, not in a one dramatic moment, but one move at a time. Now zoom out for a second. China depends heavily on energy flowing through this region. If supply gets disrupted, it affects factories, trade, transports, and the broader economy. So from Beijing point of view, this may be less about defiance and more about protecting an energy's lifeline. And from Washington point of view, if the blockade is not enforced, credibility takes a hit. That means both sides have reasons not to step back. And that's where things becomes dangerous, because when either side wants to appear weak, mistakes becomes more likely. And here's my take. This is bigger than Iran, bigger than one tanker, bigger than one waterway. This is about who gets to shape global trade routes and who has the powers to enforce rules at sea. And right now, those limits are being tested in public view. The real question is how far this goes. Does it remain a show of force, or does one wrong move trigger something nobody can easily reverse? History shows these moments can turn quickly, and if that happens, the impact is not stay confined to one map. You're talking about oil prices, shipping costs, supply chains, and markets around the world. That is when everyone starts feeling it. So yes, I'll be watching this closely, because what looks like a single tanker crossing a narrow passage may end up representing something much larger.